Good evening and welcome to News Tonight, where we get you the biggest news and events through the day. Let's begin with the headlines. On the second day after doors opened for worship, no women in the Supreme Court allowed age group enter Sabrimala Shrine. Kerala observes shutdown against alleged police attack on protesters, prohibitory orders in force in some places. Union Minister Maneka Gandhi appeals to political parties to constitute internal committees to look into sexual harassment complaints. 6 national parties, 59 regional parties told to post information about committees on their websites. Delhi court takes cognizance of criminal defamation complaint filed by former Union Minister MJ Akbars. Tells him to record statement against one of the women who have accused him of sexual harassment on 31st October. Former Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand Chief Minister Tiwari passes away at the age of 93 in a Delhi hospital. President, Vice President and Prime Minister condoled death. And schools to get CBSE recognition on the basis of learning outcomes. HRD Ministry announces new reforms, process to be brought online to bring transparency. Under new rules, CBSE schools cannot ask parents to buy uniforms and books from specific outlets. Following the Supreme Court order allowing women of all age groups to enter the Sabrimala temple, protests were held across Kerala. Demonstrations intensified as the date of opening of the temple neared. Protesters camped at the base of the trek at Nilekal and the last stretch of the trek at Pamba to stop women from entering the shrine, even before the gates of the temple had been opened. And on Wednesday, the protests turned violent. Let's bring you the current ground situation in Kerala. The Sabrimala temple in Kerala opened its doors on Wednesday evening for the first time since the Supreme Court lifted the centuries-old entry ban on women in the 10 to 50 age group. But violent protests ensured that no woman from the previously banned age group could enter the shrine. There was chaos on the road leading from Nilekal, the gateway to the shrine, to Pamba in the foothills, from where the devotees start the arduous 6-kilometer trek to Sabrimala. Activists clashed with the police, leaving many injured and bleeding. The closest any woman in the 10 to 50 age bracket could reach was a point near the Pamba river, from where the pilgrims have to trek nearly 6-kilometer uphill to the shrine. Women journalists were heckled, their equipment damaged, and young female Ayappa devotees were turned back as hordes of activists laid siege to the road leading to the temple. A Delhi-based woman journalist of a foreign media outlet who trekked the Sabrimala hill was stopped midway by Lord Ayappa devotees opposing entry of women of menstrual age into the hill shrine.
She decided to go up and wanted to interview and see by herself. And when she reached Marakutam, she decided to come back after seeing the crowd. And they were shouting slogans and they were emotionally charged. So she decided to come back. Police presence was there. Police was ready to take her. She has given her statement. She has categorically stated the police was all willing to take her up to the temple, but she decided to come back.
The tense law and order situation prompted the district authorities to clamp prohibitory orders, banning large gatherings in a 30 square kilometer radius of the town. A statewide shutdown was observed in Kerala on Thursday by a group that calls itself the Sabrimala Protection Committee. The shutdown saw a huge response, with only a few private vehicles being visible on the road. Stray incidents of violence were reported in parts of the state like Kozhikode, Malappuram and Thiruvananthapuram. Shops and markets were shut. Railway commuters faced the brunt of the shutdown as taxis and public vehicles stayed off the roads. Dozens of demonstrators were detained for staging protests in violation of Section 144. The left-led government in Kerala called the attacks politically motivated violence. Talks between board officials and major stakeholders of Sabarimala, including members of the Tantri family, those from the erstwhile Pandalam royal family and devotees associations, failed to yield results.
A request, only my personal request, please keep the system and custom of the Sabarimala temple.
There are some rituals that have been followed up, and it has to be followed spiritual, because in some of the temples which has been where there are some rules and regulations, speculations, and the rituals has to be followed strictly, and you can't change all these things in a fraction of a second.
Both sides now await the Supreme Court's decision on the review petitions, which it is expected to take up shortly. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. And to discuss more on the law and order situation in Kerala, we being joined on News Tonight by Mr. C. Pal Singh, former IG of the Punjab Police. Very good evening, sir, and thank you for joining us on News Tonight. Sir, protests against the entry of women in the 10 to 50 age group were anticipated because scores of protesters had already begun to camp en route to the temple much before the temple opened yesterday. Even then, the protests turned violent. Why do you think the situation spiraled out of control?
I like to say that there have been only in July, the Supreme Court has given a very, very strong decision against this sort of lawlessness, vigilantism, and fanatic attitude, whereby law is being interpreted by these groups. And, quote, they said the police or the governing authority should take preventive, remedial, and legal action. The question is the preventive action. When we knew for the last many days that the protests are going to be launched, that some fanatic groups and some political parties having a vote bank politics in their mind are going to obstruct the movement of the women from 10 to 15 inside the Sabarimala temple.
Yes.
That time, why the preventive action was not taken? The preventive action is in terms of rounding up the people who are going to be at the forefront of this sort of protest and not allowing the people to get in as per their constitutional and legal right. Second is the remedial action. Now, the remedial action also has failed because remedial action should not be taken now at this time. Remedial action should have been taken by creating certain points, certain barriers where they should have withheld these protesters. The police should not have allowed. Now, the last is the stern action. Now, I feel I totally endorse that if the police has done lathi charge and has not allowed them to go further to create anarchy, that sort of action has started. But this action can have repercussions. Therefore, I feel as far as the police is concerned, as far as governing authority is concerned, it has failed in not taking the preventive action and also taking the remedial action rather late. Now the question is how far this type of protest, this type of attitude of people should be allowed to go on in the society. Just in July, the Supreme Court gave the order that this will lead to anarchy. You should not allow such sort of vigilant group that this is their authority, they are all right, we have to do this, we ignore law, we violate law, we take action. Earlier there were vigilant groups, they were getting into lynching. Then some vigilant group were co-vigilantes, they were going to act. Then after that there were some other groups, they came in. I mean, the law and order is not the subject, is not the property of these vigilant groups.
Yes.
Law and order
is
the subject which is to be maintained, which is to be implemented by the police under the concerned state government.
Certainly.
On that issue,
Sir, and the situation in Kerala at the moment
that
is...
we are not concerned with that. Let the state take action. The left parties, the Democratic left parties are there. So they say, no, state government should take action. At the same time, some of the political parties are trying to take advantage and creating problems there. My submission is that let us not go into this vote bank politics at this stage. The country is really going from one state to other in a sort of lawlessness. This lawlessness cannot be allowed to go further.
Certainly, and also because the Kerala government has expressed its commitment to implement the Supreme Court order. Despite that, no woman of menstrual age has been able to visit this shrine. It's been more than 24 hours after the temple was opened. So in a situation like this, how do you think the state will ensure rule of law in Kerala?
Yes, I still feel that now there is, certain predilections of the police people also. I read some hours back that some women police officers who were to be sent there, they refused to go there, or they requested not to be sent there because their own attitude was that these people should not, the ladies in the menstruation age between 10 to 50 should not be allowed. Yes. So you see, you have to take a selective action. You have to do the selection process. You have to see beforehand, because we knew that this is going to happen. We knew there are people against it. The government of Kerala should have at that time acted. Now I feel, at this stage also, still 3 days are left. I am of the view they should be cleared of all this. This area should be cleared of all these protesters. Numerical strength, if required by the police, should be given. It has to be handled strictly. Yes. And we should ensure that the orders passed by Supreme Court are not violated in this manner by these protests. By violation of the order, what are you going to do? Ultimately, the constitutional breakdown. The law and order breakdown. Do you want the law and order breakdown is there? Hence, the state government has not been able to control. Let us impose the governor rule. That is not the answer. The answer is that at this stage, the government, it is committed. The left democratic group which is ruling, he is committed, Mr. Vijayan has committed that will allow these people to go in. Now, this commitment should be carried to the hilt. It should be carried to the last, and no, we have to allow them.
Certainly.
Who are you to stop them?
We also hope that the situation in Kerala comes back to normal, and the constitutional equality which the Supreme Court has underlined is implemented in force. Thank you so much for joining us on News Tonight. Moving on, Women and Child Development Minister Maneka Gandhi has urged all recognized political parties to form internal committees to look into complaints of sexual harassment. Gandhi said she has written to 6 national parties and 59 regional parties, asking them to form internal complaints committee against sexual harassment and also post information about it on their websites. Section 4 of the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act mandates every organization that employs women to constitute an internal complaints committee, which is to be headed by a senior woman employee of the organization. The minister had earlier also written to all Bollywood production houses to form an ICC, following which about 7 of them formed such committees. And the Patiala House Court in Delhi took cognizance of former Union Minister MJ Akbars' defamation case against journalist Priya Ramani, who has accused him of sexual misconduct around 20 years ago. Akbar has been asked to come and record his statement on the 31st of October. Additional Chief Metropolitan Magistrate Samar Vishal heard the submissions of senior advocate Geeta Luthra, who is representing the former minister, that the defamatory tweets and similar social media posts of Ramani have caused irreparable loss to his reputation built over 40 years. The lawyer referred to the sequence of events and said that Akbar had to resign from the post of Minister of State for External Affairs due to these allegations made in the defamatory tweets and other posts. She also referred to the reputation of Akbar as a journalist and sought judicial intervention in the matter by taking cognizance of the complaint. Former Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister ND Tiwari passed away in New Delhi on Thursday. 93-year-old Tiwari was shifted to the ICU of a private hospital in July following multiple organ failure. The veteran Congress leader also served as the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand and also as the Governor of Andhra Pradesh. President Ramnath Kovind, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, also Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu expressed grief over the demise of ND Tiwari. In a tweet, President Kovind hailed Tiwari's contribution for the development and public welfare of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand. The Vice President also condoled the death of the veteran leader. Expressing grief, Prime Minister Modi called ND Tiwari a towering leader known for his administrative skills. The CBSE on Thursday introduced reforms for granting affiliation to schools. Under the new reforms, state governments will certify a school's infrastructure. New schools applying for affiliation will need to get a no objection certificate from the district education officer who will inspect the infrastructure of the school. After the NOC from the district education officer, the board will do another inspection for learning outcomes. The new provisions also mandate schools to make full disclosure of fee structure and also prohibit them from levying hidden charges. Schools cannot force students to buy books, uniforms or other school-related items from a specific shop or establishment. The CBSE is also asking schools to give an undertaking about making sports mandatory. Javadekar said the complete revamp is being done to ensure speed, transparency and ease of doing business with the board.
हमने पहला आज मेजर सुधार किया है कि जिला शिक्षण अधिकारी जमीन, सेफ्टी और बाकी सब जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के मसले हैं, जो स्कूल के रिक्वायरमेंट है, जो एनओसी देते समय होते हैं, उसको एक बार ऑथेंटिकेट करेंगे जांच करके कि इस पर सीबीएसई पुनः जांच नहीं करेगी। सीबीएसई उसमें सीधा केवल एक नया इंस्पेक्शन करेगी जो केवल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का नहीं होगा, वो आउटकम का होगा। ये दूसरा बदलाव है कि सीबीएसई के स्कूल में यूनिफॉर्म कहाँ से खरीदे, जूते कहाँ से खरीदेंगे, टाई कहाँ से खरीदेंगे, इसका कोई कंपल्शन नहीं होगा। कहीं से भी दुकान से वो जो यूनिफॉर्म होगा वो छात्र डालेंगे, लेकिन कहाँ से लेना ये दुकान का कंपल्शन नहीं होगा। फिर जो भी फीस का डिस्क्लोजर है वो सब डिस्क्लोजर होना चाहिए कि खर्चा कितना, उत्पन्न कितना, आय कितना, ये सब समझना चाहिए। और तीसरी बात हमने कही है कि हिडन कॉस्ट नहीं चाहिए।
Air quality in the NCR region adjoining New Delhi remained very poor for the second day in a row on Thursday. Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi to press for compensation to farmers to discourage them from burning stubble. Singh told the Prime Minister that one of the main causes of air pollution is stubble burning and the air quality levels could further deteriorate if the matter is not addressed urgently. The overall air quality index of Delhi was recorded at 315, with several areas nearing severe levels of pollution. And state-owned oil companies on Thursday reduced petrol and diesel prices by 21 paise and 11 paise per litre respectively after a gap of 13 days. Oil firms cited a drop in the cost of international crude production as a reason behind the price decline, which has happened for the first time in the past 2 months. The rates were reduced by a minimum ₹2.50 per litre across the country on the 5th of October, when the government cut excise duty on petrol and diesel by ₹1.50 a litre and asked oil PSUs to subsidize the fuels by another ₹1 a litre. And some more news from across the country in Nationwide. The government will not push for re-verification of mobile service customers, and it will be done only if a customer opts to replace Aadhaar records with any alternate identity or address proof. This was stated in a joint statement by the Department of Telecom and the UIDAI. The joint statement said the Supreme Court has prohibited the issue of new SIM cards through the Aadhaar eKYC authentication process, and there is no direction to deactivate the old mobile phones. It said that there is absolutely no reason for people to panic. A Tehreek-ul-Mujahideen terrorist involved in a grenade attack in which 3 police personnel were injured was killed in a gunfight with security forces in Pulwama district. Shaukat Ahmad Bhatt was wanted in Wednesday's Patan grenade incident and was killed in the gunfight in South Kashmir district. The number of people infected with Zika virus has risen to 106 in Rajasthan. The 6 new Zika cases confirmed on Thursday were from Jaipur and 2 neighbouring districts. In view of the rising number of cases, the centre on Wednesday rushed an Indian Council of Medical Research team to the state to intensify vector control measures. Time for a short break. News and updates will continue on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching News Tonight. Vice President MJ Akbars met King Philip of Belgium on Thursday. The two leaders expressed their commitment to boost bilateral investment, trade and people-to-people ties. The Vice President called for the collective efforts of global community to counter terrorism. He also shared his perspective on the government's flagship initiatives, including innovative governance to address complex challenges faced by India as the world's largest democracy, and also to simultaneously put India on a faster, inclusive growth and development trajectory. Venkaiah Naidu also thanked Belgium for its support for India's candidature at the UN and other international organizations. Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe arrived in Delhi on a 3-day visit. Wickremesinghe is expected to hold wide-ranging talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday. During the visit, the two prime ministers are likely to review the status of India-assisted housing projects in Jaffna. Home Minister Rajnath Singh and External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj will also call on Wickremesinghe. This is the Lankan Prime Minister's 5th official visit to India since assuming office in 2015.
You are aware of the very close friendship and partnership between India and Sri Lanka. Development cooperation between India and Sri Lanka, of course, will be one of the items which could be discussed. Beyond that, I think at this stage it will be difficult for me. I'm sure once the meeting is concluded, then we will have some details for you.
A day after the Trump administration announced revision in the definition of employment and specialty occupations under the H-1B visa, the Ministry of External Affairs has tried to clear the air. The MEA has said that the Indian government is in constant talks with the Trump government and there is nothing to fear about the move.
It's a very important topic for us, and that is the reason why we have time and again at different levels we have taken up this matter with the US side. Most recently, this was discussed and it was mentioned as well during the 2+2 meeting. We are closely engaged with the administration as well as the US Congress on this matter. It is indeed correct that the administration has taken measures to prevent abuse of this program. And there are certain bills which have been introduced. I think what we get to hear are the provisions from those bills. But it is important to note that none of these bills have been passed to continue to engage with the US on this matter.
And that's it from us in this bulletin. Thanks for your time.